Well, it's time again for another Ernie Live from Broadway Live. We are here backstage, cast party, well, not really backstage, it's cast party for Something Rotten. It's right here in Houston at the Hobby Center. With me is Walt.
Cyprian.
Walt Cyprian, yes, that's his full name. And we're here, we're going to be taking your questions as we do this. So remember, if you want to join in, send a question on Facebook right now. Walt's keeping track of everybody. And the good news is at the end of our little conversation, one of you is going to win a pair of tickets to come and see the show tomorrow night here at the Hobby Center. So enough setup, don't you think?
Yes.
Do you have anything else you want to say?
No.
No. Well, then you know what it's time to do? Let's introduce our guest. Walt, who is my first guest?
I don't know. Who are you going to talk to first?
Probably Mr. Cote.
Oh, this is Scott Cote, and he gets a name tag.
I get a name tag.
Yes.
There it is.
And then the person I'm going to speak to second is...
Autumn Hulbert. There's your name tag.
Oh, we're just missing an R.
They spelled your name wrong.
That's
Walt.
I spelled your name wrong. And
Well,
I had a program.
One demerit.
And I had a
One
program, too, with your name spelled in it correctly.
You know
Remember that you've got to share your mic back and forth.
It
so they can hear all
coordinates. It coordinates with
It
my
does.
outfit.
Oh, look at that.
Mine.
Yours coordinates too. I love it.
All right.
All right.
Now that we've figured out all the fashion problems, let's talk a little bit about the show, Something Rotten. One thing we always get hit on is we don't explain what the show is. I guess the show would be the origin of the musical theater and maybe the real story of Shakespeare.
That's correct. Yeah, it's basically about two brothers who are writers, Nick and Nigel Bottom, and they're sort of stuck in the shadow of William Shakespeare, who is the big-time writer of the day.
Big rock star.
Big rock star. And they're looking for the next biggest thing in the theater to try to up Shakespeare. And so Nick goes to see a soothsayer and asks him to look into the future and say, what's the next big thing in the theater? And lo and behold...
The soothsayer's really bad at his job and tells him it's a musical. Just kidding, we love musicals!
Yeah, we love musicals. And so it happens to be a musical, so they go out and write the world's first musical.
Funny, farcical, great music, a lot of action, great dance numbers. You wouldn't expect that in something that's a parody kind of show. So much fun to do. The old saying is, dying's easy, comedy's hard. You guys have to do this, what is it, 8 times a week sometimes?
8 times a week.
How do you keep the energy up? How do you keep the jokes fresh? How do you keep it alive?
Well, sleep. A lot of rest. I try to, as for keeping the jokes, you know.
I laugh about sleep because I have a toddler, so that's
Yeah,
not one
she
of
doesn't
those
get much
things.
sleep. Sorry, yeah. I just try to be in the moment every performance. I always say in the back of my head, there's someone here who is seeing theater for the first time, so we got to keep it fresh and new for them.
Yeah.
I say this show is kind of like a puppy. You can come in like whatever, a bad mood, a sad mood, or whatever, and as soon as you start doing the show, you're like, oh, okay, life is good. It's so funny. It's really great.
Yeah.
Okay, so other question. Well, let me ask this. Are we getting questions from out there, Walt? Are people asking questions?
I am not seeing any questions, so ask
Come
some
on with the
questions if you want some
questions.
free tickets.
Free tickets.
It's so easy to do. You comment right now while we're on this. Just type it right in on Facebook. Question for either of them or for me, Autumn,
What's your
Scott,
favorite
either,
color?
and
Red.
you'll be entered for those free tickets. Now remember,
What's
so
yours?
far nobody has
Purple.
entered, which means you have a better chance to win if you're the one who writes a question. So here we go. We're watching for those questions. So I'm curious about the relationship you two have. In the show, you're playing father and daughter.
That's right.
Yes.
In real life, how do you two get along?
Swimmingly. I mean, we've actually... This is how we get along. We joke with each other. Yeah.
No, we love each other.
We love each other very much. We actually first met each other like 10 years ago. We were doing we met in a production of Beauty and the Beast.
Really?
Yeah, she was Belle and I was LeFou. And
Really?
yeah, and then there was a period of time where we didn't work or see each other, but was kept in touch on Facebook. And then I got cast in this, and she was, I think, one of the last people to get cast. And when I saw her name, I like, oh my God!
It was like
Did you know it was the right one?
Yes, I knew it was the right. Yeah.
We do have a question.
Yeah.
Here we go. First question.
We have a question. This is from Nicole Pena. Question for both. With performances in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, and Houston, have Texas audiences or the Texas wet theater scene surprised you in any way?
Oh. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm always always genuinely surprised when they love it. Texas has loved us because it's a new show. It's original music, original story, and sometimes people don't know what to expect with that, and they may reserve, prove it to me, but. Man,
they have been very vocal.
They've been very vocal, like big old hearts in Texas, and I love that.
Have either of you played it up in New York or in that area?
No.
Because I'm very curious how outside of a New York theater crowd would react to something that seems very inside.
Surprisingly, a lot of people get the inside jokes.
Yeah.
Today I was counting them tonight and seeing, especially when there's just the tiny riff of music from another show, and you watch how the people catch them.
We still haven't heard things.
No, there are still some things, some musical things that I still haven't heard.
Yeah.
That's referencing a show, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so when you do a show like this, and it does have a historical character, and it's Shakespeare, we all know Shakespeare, and you start thinking about the time to capture your characters, do you really look back at the period? Do you try and understand that period? Or because it's a farce and it's just fun, is it all just right there in the script for you?
Luckily, for me, it's all in the script and the costume. Like, as soon as I put on a corset and, 10 plus pounds of material, I'm like, oh, I am a Puritan.
Yeah.
And the script lends itself. I did research, of course, and actually Josh Grassetti, who plays Nigel, before he played it on Broadway, he went to London and, went to the Globe and kind of immersed himself and then wrote it off on his taxes.
Talking about costumes, there's a lot of cod pieces in this show.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
Some very big cod pieces.
Some are very impressive, I might.
Okay, we got another. See, we can do this. This is late night. This is late
night.
Late live with Ernie. Okay, we've got another question, Walt.
We have another question from the same person.
Okay.
Oh, excellent.
She doesn't get 2 chances for tickets, though. Asking for my 17-year-old nephew, do either of you have any advice for high school thespians who want to make this their profession?
My biggest advice would be to, if you're really 100% want to do this, be your absolute true self. Don't try to mimic another actor that you look up to, because the people behind the table, the casting directors, want to see who you are. I mean, that's how we got where we are, being our own selves.
And know that if you want to do it, it's a lifelong goal.
Yep.
So, don't make Broadway your stop. You can do theater in, lots of places. One of our dear friends that we just saw tonight that we also did Beauty and the Beast with was living and working in New York and said, you know what? I'm a Texan and I want to go home. And she's worked nonstop since coming here. And, I think it's important to be a real person and really help, allow your other interests and talents to flourish, because anything you learn new in life helps you be a better actor, because you're an actor pretending to be a different person. So the more experience you have, the better. And
you have to realize that 98% of this job is rejection. So you got to get used to that very quickly.
Yeah.
No, see?
See, we love it.
Speaking of rejection, does your child ever reject you, that you have to run off and do theater all the time? How hard is it to be a working mom? Especially on the road working mom. Oh, we've lost her.
I fell asleep.
Autumn is
Sorry,
gone.
I just fell asleep. No, it's a joy. It's a joy. It's tough. I don't get nearly as much sleep as I should. But my little boy, I'm so fortunate, he loves it. And the cast and crew are so generous and wonderful with him, and they love him. And he's really thriving. He tends to be the life of the party. And he's watched the entire show. He watched my 2-year-old watched a 2.5-hour musical.
Impressive.
And loved it.
Yeah.
Well,
and
we're
said,
going to let
more
that
drumming.
impressive moment sit with our audience out there. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be back in just a little bit. So keep holding on Facebook Live.